Well, listen, I tell you, what an opportunity we have here. And hearing the problem that Dana just explained, it just makes me passionate and want to scream from the mountaintops the fact that we really do have a solution with a horrible diet and that we are experiencing in our culture just because of our busy lifestyles despite our good intentions. So I want to talk, before I hit on the Ludax products, just helping you understand that I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours evaluating hundreds and thousands of patients and looking at the devastating effects of the poor diet or even good diet on the blood. Because there's an ancient philosopher out there that says, his name is Hippocrates, you may have heard of him, that said, you are what you eat. And boy, is that true when you realize the effects of the diet on our blood. Now, I have a phase contrast microscope in my office, and it magnifies your blood 1,000 times. And so we're going to take a look at what the blood looks like on a normal specimen. Because you might be asking yourself, based on your own diet, what does your diet look like, and what is it affecting your blood? How does it look for you? So I want to look at this first slide. Healthy blood. Healthy blood, these are normal red blood cells that are 7.2 microns in size, which is the perfect size. This is evidence of somebody who's on a great raw diet, primarily raw. I'd say over 51% of the diet is raw foods, fruits and vegetables, and does very little, probably very modified sugars in your diet. So let's look at this. You can see each cell is perfectly round, loaded with hemoglobin. It looks like a round ball because inside the cell is wonderful hemoglobin rich in oxygen, and that's what gives you the energy. Now, these cells are floating around in what I call a clear blue sky, and this is very clean blood, I call it. There's an old saying that says, dirty playground, dirty kids, clean playground, clean kids. And I would hope that your blood might look like this. But let's go to the next slide. What happens when you look at your diet and it's loaded with more than raw fruits and vegetables, but maybe loaded with saturated fats, extra proteins, maybe some sugars in there, more than you'd like, but because of the busy lifestyle, what happens is that the blood becomes dirty. We call it sticky, dirty blood, dirty, sticky blood. And the cells actually now start to adhere together because of the excess proteins and fats that are in the blood. This can also be caused by dehydration. I know many of us aren't doing the water intake like we could because dehydration can cause sticky blood as well. What's wrong with this sample, and as we see the cells stuck together, is that we have lost the surface space. And so now the body's going to compete for oxygen. Somebody who looks like this is very often the one complaining of low energy. They're not sleeping well at night because the body simply is not assimilating oxygen, which is what it needs for vital energy. Now, this here is called undigested sugars. As the person gets more undigested sugars in the bloodstream, the liver becomes taxed. The liver is the filter for the blood in your body, and when it becomes stuck with excess sugars and proteins, it spills off into the blood and becomes very blotchy, as you can see. What looks like spicules or broken glass, I call it, those are evidence of a stressed liver. Now you can see the blotches are undigested sugars, and as we look at that, this is what is causing the body to be a spawn for fungal forms and becomes very acid, and this is where the onset of disease is. As we look at the next slide, this is now evidence of crystallized sugars. You probably never thought of it before, but when the excess sugar comes into the body, what we call uric crystals, excess proteins in the blood, these cause those sugar platelets to crystallize. And what's problem here is that this can scratch and cause inflammation on the internal walls of your veins and your arteries, in the heart, and your organs become very stressed and painful. And now the body's in an inflammatory state, which again now becomes a setup for disease and metabolic disorders. Now this is crazy because if I could show you this slide right here on a video, you can see on the top is looks like a blob, a slug, and he's actually sitting on top of an undigested sugar. And what your body is doing in this state is it's actually fighting for your best interest, trying to get rid of that thing. It many times cannot get rid of it because it's just there's too much abundance of sugars coming into the body, too many proteins coming into the body, and fats, undigested, saturated fats. But it's very fascinating to know that this is evidence of your body fighting for your best interest, trying to get rid of those undigested sugars and fats. All right. Now I want to share with you now what we call a system. Now you can understand that as I saw the Ludex products and was starting to understand what sugar block meant, I'm thinking to myself, if there really is a way that we could supplement and block this sugar from entering into the body, that would be a miracle for me, because then it would solve all the problems that we just saw in the blood. It would massively reduce the amount of those sugars that we saw in the blood and really open up the body and allow the oxygen to be fully absorbed, and now you could live a life of vibrant energy. Isn't that what we really want? So as we look at the products here, you can see the sugar blocker is the first product, followed by the Pearl, which is a wonderful antioxidant-rich product that's going to repair the damage that the sugars have done to our vessels. We'll talk about that in just a second. And then we have the Conley Tea. This is what I call a blood cleanser. We just saw what dirty blood looks like, so we have a solution to now cleanse and nourish all the cells in our bodies. So this is a wonderful system that I have learned that is so powerful and simple to take. So let's get into this. The F21 actually stands for Formula 21. For every 1 gram of L-arabinose blocks 20 grams of sucrose toxic sugar. Amazing. So we have 3 ingredients, components within this one single tablet. We have the L-arabinose, which is a natural sugar. We have the polysaccharide crescin, which is an antioxidant and a very strong immune booster. And then we have the konjac mannan root. Each tablet inhibits 10 grams of sugar from absorbing the body. So I know we do our best to try to limit the sugars, but guess what? You don't have to be perfect. You do your best, but if you think you're going to have 10 or 20 grams of sugar in your meal or in a cookie or something you choose to eat, you can match the sugars with the Formula 21 and literally block the sucrose from entering your body. We've done so many fun tests with this, checking the glucose before you ingest any sugars. Go ahead and take the sugar and see if you can get a spike. But guess what? We're finding that over and over consistently, we're finding a stabilization of the sugars, limiting the insulin spike. And what I want you to know is if we can truly limit the insulin from spiking in our blood, it's the excess insulin that spikes in the body that goes to stored fat. If you want to limit belly fat, guess what? Let's stop that insulin from spiking, and it's exactly what F21 does. It also feeds the probiotics, which is the healthy bacteria. It becomes a dietary fiber in the bowel, so this is what makes for wonderful digestion here. I'm going to give you a testimony real quick. There's 2 patients of mine, one of which got on the F21 who is having horrible, devastating effects from a condition she had with anorexia, so she had a very stopped-up system. She rarely went to the bathroom, number 2, and it was very difficult for her to do this, but she found that after taking 5 tablets of F21, that within the hour she was actually going to the bathroom in a healthy way. But then, on the other end of the spectrum, I found another patient of mine. She was riddled with a condition that caused her to have diarrhea almost every day of her adult life. And she found that when she took the F21, it caused her to have a healthy bowel movement. So we have a restoration of dietary symptoms coming to full fruition, where now these 2 ladies on opposite ends could live a normal, healthy life. It's really changed their life. Now, another interesting thing is the appetite suppressant. Now, here's the deal. How many of you have overeaten because your eyes were bigger than the plate, right? if you're thinking ahead of time, you can take 2 or 3 of these, maybe 20 minutes before your meal, and the konjac mannan root actually will swell 60 to 300 times the size of the original molecule in your stomach, so you can have a sense of fullness. You won't eat as much as you normally would. You'll be more full before that time, before the break in your diet, because there's a hormone in your brain called leptin that calms down your hunger. And so it speaks to those hormones. It helps to balance out your hunger. It strengthens the immune system, and of course it's an all-natural, organic, whole food. And that's what's nice to know, is that you're dealing with no chemicals and no synthetic compounds in these products.